So, previous videos have the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. But several people have mentioned, like, why doesn't the International Criminal Court or the Hague or anybody investigate us? And I have the answer. If you do a Google search, the answer you will get is because the United States has not joined the International Criminal Court primarily due to concerns about its sovereignty, fearing that American military personnel and political leaders would be prosecuted by the court, particularly for actions taken during military operations, which they view as potentially politically motivated and could infringe on their ability to conduct foreign policy freely. This concern is further amplified by the belief that the ICC might not always have a fair and impartial approach to judging U.S. actions. Really quick, we're going to define some things, one of which is crime against humanity, which is outlined for multiple purposes, but this is the one I really want to hit on. So it's defined here under Cornell Law School. For crimes against humanity are specific crimes committed in the context of a large-scale attack targeting civilians, regardless of their nationality. These crimes include the most egregious violations of human dignity, especially those directed towards civilian populations. Crimes against humanity have often been committed as part of state policies, but they can be perpetrated by non-state armed groups or paramilitary forces. It's codified further for the ICC, but they include murder, extermination, deportation or forcible transfer, false imprisonment, torture, rape, sexual slavery or enforced sterilization, ethnic persecution, disappearance, apartheid, other inhumane acts of a similar character intentionally causing great suffering, serious injury to body or to mental or physical health. The intent requirement for liability is knowledge of the attack. Okay, so the International Criminal Court, or what we think is of as people going to the Hague, is an intergovernmental organization, an international tribunal seated in The Hague, Netherlands. It's a place, not a building, for those who were confused. It is the first and only permanent international court with jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for the international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. Genocide is defined as the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. A crime of aggression or the crime against the peace, is the planning, initiation, or execution of a large-scale and serious act of aggression using state military force. The definition and scope of the crime is controversial. The Rome Statute, which was adopted by the ICC, contains an exhaustive list of acts of aggression that can give rise to individual criminal responsibility, which include invasion, military occupation, annexation by the use of force, bombardment and military blockade of ports. In general, committing an act of aggression is a leadership crime that can only be committed by those with the power to shape a state's policy of aggression as opposed to those who discharge it. The last term that they use, war crime, is defined. A war crime is a violation of the laws of war that give rise to individual criminal responsibility for actions by combatants in action, such as intentionally killing civilians or intentionally killing prisoners of war, torture, taking hostages, unnecessary destroying of civilian property, deception by perfidy, wartime sexual violence, pillaging, and for any individual that is part of the command structure who orders any attempt to committing mass killings, including genocide or ethnic cleansing, the granting of no quarter despite surrender, the conscription of children in the military, and flouting the legal distinctions of proportionality and military necessity. Now, the ICC is distinct from the International Court of Justice. They're different. which is an organ of the United Nations that hears disputes between states. They can settle it amongst themselves. The ICC was established in 2002, pursuant to the multilateral Rome Statute. The ICC is considered by its proponents to be a major step towards justice and an innovation in the international law and human rights. So following the First World War, in 1919, the Commission of Responsibilities, it was addressed that at a conference held in Geneva that the League of Nations in 1937, which was a convention stipulating the establishment of a permanent international court. They thought that because of everything that was going on, that they should have an international court to hold everyone accountable to certain standards. Now, we've heard of it from the Nuremberg trials or things like that. And that started after World War II. So they got the idea after World War I, but then things really started kicking into gear after World War II, after the persecution of the Jewish nationals in Germany by a certain mustached person. So following the Second World War, the Allied powers established two ad hoc tribunals to prosecute Axis leaders accused of war crimes. So the first was the International Military Tribunal, which sat at Nuremberg and prosecuted German leaders, while the International Military Tribunal for the Far East in Tokyo persecuted Japanese leaders. All of that happened, and in 1948, the United Nations General Assembly recognized the need for a permanent international court to deal with the atrocities, the likes of the kind that were persecuted after World War II. The General Assembly, the International Law Commission, drafted two statutes by the early 1950s, but they were shelved during the Cold War. So it kind of made it unrealistic. And then an investigator of Ponzi war crimes after World War II, Benjamin B. Farrakins, and the chief prosecutor for the United States Army at Eitzengruppen trial, became more vocal advocate for the establishment of the ICC and the rule of law for International Criminal Court. He has a book. It's called Defining International Aggression, The Search for World Peace, 1975. He and another leading proponent, Robert Kurt Wotzel, a German-born professor of international law, created the foundation for the establishment of the International Criminal Court in 1970. He also has a book. It is called Toward a Feasible International Criminal Court in 1970. Part 2 will be in the next video.